It all began with a murder. An accidental murder, but a murder nonetheless. The sun dipped below the skyline. Hipponos drew back his bow. There could be no doubt. It had to be the stag that he and his brother Belleros had been hunting for 2 days now. Hipponos held his breath. The arrow flew. Immediately, a cry rang out. Not the cry of an animal, though. This was the howl of a human. A few strides away from Hipponos, a silhouette collapsed face down in the earth. Not a stag, but a man. Hipponos leaned over the body and immediately knew it to be that of his brother Belleros. A horrified expression spread across his face. All was lost, because he who kills his brother will not only be condemned by his fellow men, but also cursed by the gods. So he would no longer call himself Hipponos. From now on, he would be Bellerophon, meaning the killer of Belleros. Having buried his brother, Bellerophon lay across the tomb and stared at the ground. How would he ever obtain the gods' forgiveness? All the more so as, up on Olympus, some would say that this crime was bound to happen sooner or later. Who was Bellerophon? He was, in fact, the grandson of a mortal, one of the biggest criminals of all time, Sisyphus. Sisyphus the cunning, Sisyphus the liar. To punish him for his tricks and lies, Zeus compelled him to push a huge rock up to the summit of a hill, from which it would forever fall back down again. Bellerophon dreamed of adventure. He dreamed of matching the greatest heroes. Now it was all over. He would be banished. Bellerophon took one last look at the walls of Corinth, the city of his birth, the city where his father Glaucus reigned, the city where he was a prince. He knew that its gates would now be forever closed to him. Custom demanded that any murderer be exiled from his city, compelled to wander until another city agreed to take him in, and until a king cleansed him by offering hospitality. Bellerophon then considered Proetos. Proetos was king of Tiryns in the Gulf of Argos. Maybe Proetos would be generous enough to take him in. He was said to be a kind-hearted and a good king. Bellerophon set off. Moved by Bellerophon's account of the tragedy he had suffered, Proetos duly offered him a home in his palace. He introduced him to everyone in the king's court, including Queen Stheneboea. Unbeknownst to him, Proetos had just unwittingly written the first act of an even greater tragedy. One night, while Bellerophon slept, the door opened. A silhouette crossed the room and slipped into his bed. It was Queen Stheneboea. Bellerophon gave a start. The queen declared her undying love for him, covering him with kisses. She loved him. She had loved him from the first moment. The poor young man panicked and backed off. But Queen Stheneboea insisted, trying to wrap her arms around him. Bellerophon was indignant. It was out of the question for him to betray the hospitality of Proetos. He told Stheneboea to go and stop bothering him. The humiliated queen departed, looking black as thunder. It was clear that she had not had her last word. The following day, Queen Sthenebia publicly accused Bellerophon of trying to ravish her. Despite the young man's protestations, he was condemned by one and all. King Proetos felt he was on the horns of the kind of awful dilemma that can ruin a man and lead him astray. He could not let this outrage go unpunished, nor could he kill his guest with his own hand. That would go against the sacred laws of hospitality. Infringing them would incur the wrath of the gods. Then he had an idea. Proetos asked Bellerophon to take a message to his stepfather, Iobates, king of Lycia. Grateful to escape so lightly, the young man accepted the assignment. Little did he know, he had just signed his death warrant. When he arrived at the court of King Iobates, Bellerophon was warmly greeted. His first 9 days there were filled with festivals and banquets. Only on the 10th day did Iobates decide to unseal the message that Bellerophon had brought with him. What he discovered inside mortified him. Proetos had written, "Pray remove the bearer from this world. He attempted to violate my wife, your daughter." But like his son-in-law, Iobates was loath to punish Bellerophon. One cannot kill a guest without offending the gods. Nevertheless, a solution had to be found. So he offered Bellerophon a mission: to kill a fearsome monster that had terrorized his kingdom for many years, a monster born from the amorous entanglements of the cruelest demons in hell. A wicked creature endowed with 3 heads: the head of an avaricious lion, the head of a goat spitting flames, and the head of a fire-breathing dragon. It was known as the Chimera. Bellerophon accepted the challenge. He felt no fear, seeing only an opportunity to prove his worth. How long he had waited for this moment. From an early age, he had dreamed of becoming a hero. He yearned to go down in history, for his name to be the stuff of legend. To be mentioned in the same breath as his idol Perseus, the demigod born of Zeus's love affairs, who had won glory by cutting off the head of Medusa the Gorgon. He had to find a way to take on the Chimera without being devoured by fire. If he attempted to attack from the rear, he would almost certainly be swept away by its colossal tail. Bellerophon decided to consult a seer. He was told that the only way to overcome the monster would be from the air. And to that end, there was only one solution: to capture and tame Pegasus, the fabulous winged horse, the white steed so beloved of the Muses and said to be indomitable. Pegasus. At last, Bellerophon was going to follow in the footsteps of his heroes, the valiant Perseus, Jason, Orpheus, Heracles. Rumor had it, the seer told him, that Pegasus lived with the Muses on Mount Helicon. Bellerophon scoured every last corner of the region, but could find no trace of the horse. He roamed the roads and forests. Still nothing. Finally, one morning, his travels took him to the temple of Athena. Exhausted, he collapsed at the foot of a column and fell asleep. It is often when mortals have fallen into a deep sleep that the gods come to speak with them. Here, Athena, goddess of wisdom, came to the young man. And this is what she told him. "At your feet you will find a gift. It will allow you to tame the divine Pegasus. After your victory, you must thank Poseidon, the father of Pegasus, by building a temple in his honor. The goddess added, "You will find the winged horse in the fountain of Pyrene. He likes to drink there." When Bellerophon awoke, he found the gift had been left close by. He picked it up. It was the golden bridle. Bellerophon made his way back along the road to the place indicated by the goddess, the fountain of Pyrene. It was a magical fountain said to be created from the tears of Pyrene, the girl of the river Asopos, mourning the death of her son inadvertently killed by the goddess Artemis. Athena was right. Pegasus was indeed there. The sublime, dazzlingly white steed seemed to be waiting peacefully for him. Bellerophon edged closer and carefully slipped the gold bridle onto him. After a moment's hesitancy, he mounted the horse. Immediately, Pegasus reared up and, in a neighing that made the trees tremble, hurtled towards the skies. Up he soared, flying high over the clouds, a formidable messenger. Bellerophon let the steed ride free. Pegasus carried Athena's protégé towards the den of the Chimera. After flying over hill and vale, Pegasus soared around in a broad circle. The frightening silhouette of the Chimera had just appeared. Pegasus swooped down on the monster. Bellerophon drew back his bow and shot his arrows, while the horse pounded the skull of the Chimera with his hooves. Alas, to no avail. The animal seemed indestructible. The arrows shattered like glass on its skin. Then, inspired again by Athena, Bellerophon affixed a piece of lead to the tip of his spear. As Pegasus swooped down once more towards the Chimera, Bellerophon planted his spear into the mouth of the vile creature. The Chimera began to spit out fire, but the fire only melted the lead, which ran down into its throat, consuming and suffocating the monster. The battle was over. Bellerophon could now return victorious to the palace of Iobates. The young man was hailed by the crowd as a liberator. Strangely, though, from King Iobates there was no such outpouring of joy. No honors, no gratitude. On the contrary, he seemed upset. And with good reason. Bellerophon had to pay for the outrage he had perpetrated on his son-in-law and daughter. Bellerophon then was asked to fight the fierce and warlike Solymi, a people known for their cruelty and savagery. The young man set off once again. Nothing could frighten him now, after achieving the unthinkable and killing the Chimera. Again, with the help of the loyal Pegasus, Bellerophon managed to vanquish the barbarians. He withdrew, leaving behind him a battlefield in ruins, littered with hundreds of bodies. Iobates was distraught. He began to wonder about the true origins of this young man. He was the son of Glaucus, but some were given to understand that his real father might be Poseidon, master of the seas and oceans. If so, Bellerophon would be of a divine nature. No matter, he must die. No sooner had Bellerophon returned to the palace than Iobates dispatched him to fight the Amazons. The Amazons were fearsome, warlike women who terrorized the population. Rumors about them were rife. It was said that they were the descendants of Ares, the god of war, and the nymph Harmony, and that Amazons slaughtered their male children at birth or made them lame or blind in order to use them as servants. It was also said that they cut off their right breast, the better to draw back their bows, and were practically invincible in battle. All this in no way scared Bellerophon. Sitting astride the haughty Pegasus, he polished off the warriors in no time. He returned to a rapturous reception. The people of Lycia were in a frenzy, singing his praises. All except Iobates, who continued to look somber. Not only did the king refuse to commend his deeds, he sent his best soldiers with orders to arrest him and eliminate him. This was too much. Bellerophon killed the king's soldiers and ran to Iobates, determined to obtain an explanation. Iobates laid down his weapon. He was now convinced that Proetus must have been mistaken about the attempted rape of Stheneboea. He showed Bellerophon the message from Proetus, ordering that he should be killed, before giving a humble bow. Bellerophon was blessed. Any man able to mount the indomitable Pegasus, vanquish the Chimera, decimate the Solymi, and drive the Amazons out of the country could only be the son of a god. There could be no doubt that in his veins ran the noble and powerful blood of the divinity Poseidon. Iobates went even further. To prove his admiration, he gave his own daughter to Bellerophon in marriage and nominated him his successor. Word quickly spread around all Greece. Bellerophon was a demigod, the son of the god Poseidon, brother of the great Pegasus. Bellerophon greeted the acclaim with great satisfaction and no little pride. His ambition had finally been fulfilled. He was bursting with conceit. But the faithless Stheneboea, who had unjustly accused him, had to be punished. Pegasus would take care of it. Off flew the steed to Tiryns, where the queen had fled, having learned of the failure of her plot. After nightfall, she left the palace. Just then, Pegasus arrived. He offered to take Stheneboea on his back. Stheneboea accepted his offer. Pegasus carried her away towards the sea. But once above the waves, he reared up wildly. The panicking queen clung desperately to his mane. Pegasus kicked, neighed, and reared again. This time, Stheneboea toppled off, dispatched once and for all. Bellerophon was finally fulfilled. His spouse, the daughter of King Iobates, gave him 3 children, and he ascended to the throne of Lycia. However, he was to make a mistake, a fatal error. The more his exploits were attributed to his bloodline with Poseidon, the more Bellerophon felt belittled and humiliated. He grew to detest this divine father who had been foisted upon him, and who prevented him from being acknowledged for the man he was, Bellerophon. Besides, Bellerophon does not believe a word of this rubbish. His father was not, nor had he ever been, a god. He was no more begat by Poseidon than he was by Apollo or Zeus. His father was Glaucus, a mere mortal, and he, Bellerophon, owed his victories only to his own skill and courage. To make sure everybody knew, he began to proclaim loud and clear to all and sundry that the gods had no business in the affairs of men. All that was only empty superstition. The gods had no hand in his glorious destiny. He, Bellerophon, son of a mortal, was as strong and as brave as any god. The priests tried to calm him down. They pleaded with him to withdraw his blasphemous words. This sent Bellerophon into a fit of rage. Picking up a mace, he began to smash down the columns in the temple of Poseidon, one after the other. "The gods are nothing," he repeated. "My victories were mine, and mine alone, you hear? Mine alone." In his rage, Bellerophon dreamed up a new plan, a particularly wild plan. If he was being honored as a god, then his rightful place was among the gods, on Olympus, with the immortals. He mounted Pegasus and soared up into the air towards Olympus. It would be his final trip. The gods love their heroes well, provided they accept the limitations imposed on human beings. No sooner had Pegasus taken to the skies than Zeus emerged from his palace. He closely observed the steed and its rider hurtling towards him. With a snap of the fingers, he produced a gadfly, which he dispatched to attack the magnificent and invincible steed. The faithful Pegasus, stung by Zeus's gadfly, bolted, pirouetted, and reared up. Bellerophon was thrown from his back. The fall was breathtaking, and the landing devastating. Bellerophon crashed right into the middle of a thorn bush, which tore out his eyes. He was thought to be dead, but no. Zeus did not want him killed. The king of the gods regarded death as too slight a punishment for the sin of pride committed by Bellerophon. When the young man rose to his feet, he was blind and lame. Distraught and haggard, he began to limp along the first road he came across. No one knows where Bellerophon went, nor how he finished his days. He was forgotten about. And until today, no one had ever heard about a man who was desperate to etch himself in legend, to become a hero. A man who dared claim himself to be the equal of the gods.